A single bite of food can hold a person's entire soul, but it can also reveal a dark, greedy thief. I wiped the heavy sweat from my forehead. The kitchen was quiet. I looked at the small, beautiful plate in front of me. It was my ultimate masterpiece. I had spent 5 long years creating this special dish. I am Clara, the loyal sous chef at Laura. It is the most famous and expensive French restaurant in the city. I carefully carried the hot plate to Julian. He was the famous, rich head chef of the restaurant. Julian wore a clean, perfectly white uniform. He was a huge star on television, but he had stopped creating new dishes a long time ago. His mind was empty. "Chef Julian, please taste this," I said softly. I also gave him my private, handwritten recipe book. This thick book contained all my deepest culinary secrets. Julian took a small silver spoon. He tasted the dark, rich sauce and the soft meat. He closed his eyes for a long second. The bright kitchen was completely silent. I waited for his happy approval with a beating heart. Suddenly, Julian opened his eyes. They were cold, hard, and angry. "This is absolute garbage, Clara," he said loudly. "The flavors are a complete disaster. You have absolutely no talent." My heart broke into a million pieces. He took my beautiful plate and walked to the dirty trash can. Julian threw my perfect food directly into the garbage. I held back my sad tears and walked out of the kitchen. I felt like a total failure. I went home and cried all night in my small bed. But I did not know the terrible secret of that night. The garbage can was perfectly clean. Julian had caught the plate before the food touched the dirty trash. Julian smiled a dark, greedy smile. He carefully moved my food onto a clean, expensive plate. A very important food critic was sitting in the dining room waiting for a meal. Julian walked out and proudly served my masterpiece to the VIP guest. He looked at the critic and smiled. He told the man that it was his own brilliant, new creation. The critic loved it. The next morning, I walked into the restaurant, ready to apologize for my failure. But the large security guards stopped me at the front door. Julian walked out with a cruel, cold smile. "You're fired, Clara," he said. "Pack your things and leave immediately." He held up a thick, official legal document. "By the way, I just copyrighted the new menu." I looked at the document in pure shock. It was my entire private recipe book. He had stolen my 5 years of hard work. He registered every single recipe under his own name. The guards pushed me into the cold street. My dark nightmare had just begun. The world of fine dining is a very small, exclusive club. If you make one powerful enemy, all the doors will close forever. I walked the city streets for 2 weeks, looking for a new job. I knocked on the doors of many restaurants, begging for a simple cooking position. Every single manager looked at me with deep disgust. They shook their heads and told me to leave. Finally, a kind waiter pulled me into a quiet alley. He showed me a message on his phone. Julian had sent a secret email to every restaurant owner in the city. The cruel email contained a terrible, fake rumor. Julian claimed that I was dangerously crazy. He wrote that he caught me secretly putting toxic cleaning chemicals into the customers' food. He told them I was a dangerous criminal. My name was officially on the industry's permanent blacklist. No one in the world would ever let me touch their food again. Julian had completely destroyed my career to protect his stolen recipes. I walked back to my small, rented apartment feeling completely hopeless. But the nightmare was not finished yet. The landlord was waiting at my door. Because I had lost my job, I could not pay the expensive rent. The angry landlord threw my small bags onto the sidewalk. He changed the locks on my door. I was officially homeless. I wandered through the dark, cold city with only a few dollars in my pocket. I walked away from the bright city center. I went to the poorest, dirtiest slum area. The buildings were old, broken, and covered in ugly paint. I finally found a tiny, damp basement room for rent. It was incredibly cheap because it used to be a dirty storage closet. The room smelled like wet dirt and old paper. There was no real kitchen, only a small sink and a broken table. The walls were cold, gray concrete. I put my bags on the floor and sat down. I had lost my famous restaurant, my money, and my honor. But as I looked around the empty basement, I saw an old, portable gas stove in the corner. I touched the cold metal of the stove. A tiny spark of fire woke up in my broken heart. Julian could steal my paper recipes, but he could not steal my hands. He could not steal the magic in my mind. I was a true chef, and a true chef cooks anywhere. I wiped my tired eyes. I decided I would not let that arrogant thief win. I would build a new kitchen right here, in the darkest shadows of the city. I had almost no money, so I could not buy expensive ingredients. I woke up very early and walked to the cheapest local street market. I bought the ugly, broken vegetables that nobody else wanted. I bought cheap, tough pieces of leftover meat from the local butcher for a few coins. I carried the cheap plastic bags back to my dark basement. I cleaned the old portable gas stove and started the small fire. I did not need expensive truffles or rich caviar. I used my high-level techniques to transform the cheap garbage into absolute culinary gold. I chopped the ugly vegetables perfectly. I slowly cooked the tough meat for many hours until it was incredibly soft. The damp basement quickly filled with the most beautiful, warm smell in the world. I opened my basement window to let the fresh air inside the room. Late that night, a homeless man walked past my window. He wore dirty, torn clothes and looked very tired. He smelled the amazing food and stopped. He slowly walked down the broken stairs to my door. He held out 2 wrinkled, dirty dollar bills in his shaking hand. "Can I buy a bowl of soup, please?" he asked with a weak voice. I smiled warmly and took his money. I served him a hot, beautiful bowl of soup. He sat on a broken plastic chair in the dark alley. He took a small sip from the spoon. Suddenly, the old homeless man dropped his spoon. He covered his face with his dirty hands and began to cry loudly. Huge tears rolled down his cheeks. "This flavor," he whispered, shaking his head. "It wakes up my mind. I remember this feeling. It is absolute perfection." I did not know it, but this poor man was not just a beggar. 10 years ago, he was a legendary, famous chef. He had lost his memory and his money due to a sad illness. My cheap soup had miraculously awakened his deep, forgotten culinary senses. The old man pulled a cheap, broken mobile phone from his pocket. He used the free city internet to open a secret, underground food forum. He wrote a passionate, anonymous review about his magical meal. He called the creator the ghost chef of the slums. By the next morning, his review was shared thousands of times. People were incredibly curious. Who was cooking 5-star food in a dirty basement for $2? The legend of the ghost chef was born. My revenge had officially started, completely hidden in the dark, quiet shadows. The dark alley outside my basement completely changed. A long line of hungry people started standing outside my door every night. I only had one small stove, so I could only serve 10 people each evening. The mysterious food became a famous urban legend in the whole city. Rich people in expensive suits stood next to poor workers in the cold alley. Everyone wanted to taste the magic of the ghost chef. In the bright, rich center of the city, Julian was reading the internet news. He was extremely jealous and very angry about this new rival. Julian wanted to know the secret of my amazing food. He paid 3 tough men to go to the slum. He ordered them to wait in line, buy my food, and bring it back to his modern laboratory. He wanted to steal this new recipe too. The 3 men wore dark glasses and looked very dangerous. They tried to push their way to the front of the hungry line. But my loyal customers in the slum loved me. The local workers and the poor neighbors immediately stepped forward. They aggressively chased Julian's spies away. The spies ran away empty-handed. But one night, a spy successfully bought a small bowl of my special beef stew. He ran back to Julian's expensive restaurant. Julian proudly took the bowl into his bright kitchen. He tasted the cheap food, expecting to easily copy the simple flavors. Julian's confident smile quickly disappeared. He tasted a complex, deep flavor that he completely failed to understand. The secret was not the cheap meat or the ugly vegetables. The absolute magic was in the dark, thick sauce. It was a very special, slow-fermented sauce. This sauce was an old, secret recipe passed down from my grandmother. It was never written down in the notebook that Julian stole. It existed only in my memory and my hands. Julian tried to recreate the sauce all night, but he failed every single time. He threw his expensive pots across the kitchen in pure frustration. He was a famous television star, but he was completely defeated by a homeless ghost in a basement. Julian realized he could not copy my magic. If he could not steal it, he decided he had to destroy it. Julian's dark mind created a new evil plan. He could not let the ghost chef steal his glory. He picked up his phone and called his powerful, corrupt friends in the city government. He was preparing to crush my small basement kitchen into absolute, total dust. The city was buzzing with exciting news. The famous Michelin guide made a shocking, historic announcement. For the first time ever, the secret Michelin judges would taste food from street food stalls and hidden pop-up kitchens. The internet exploded with happy rumors about the mysterious ghost chef. Everyone believed the ghost chef would win a star. Julian read the news and panicked completely. His restaurant, Laura, was expecting its 3rd Michelin star this week. He could not let a dirty basement cook steal the media attention. His fragile ego and his greed took complete control. Julian knew the Michelin judges were visiting the city tonight. He opened his safe and took out stacks of dirty cash. He secretly paid a large bribe to the city's health inspection department. He ordered them to raid my basement immediately and destroy everything I had built. I was standing in my small kitchen, preparing my special fermented sauces for the night. Suddenly, the weak wooden door burst open. 4 heavy men in official city uniforms rushed into my basement. They did not ask questions. They started smashing my tools with heavy metal bars. "Health violation," the leader shouted loudly. "This illegal kitchen is closed." I screamed and tried to stop them, but a large man pushed me hard against the cold concrete wall. I watched in total horror as they kicked over my cooking pots and broke my cheap plates. But the worst part was my grandmother's sauce. The leader grabbed the large glass jars of my precious, slow-fermented sauce. He opened them and poured strong, toxic bleach chemicals directly into the liquid. The beautiful smell turned into poisonous gas. My magic was completely ruined. They laughed and walked out, leaving me in the destroyed, wet basement. I fell to my knees in the broken glass. I cried bitter tears of total defeat. Julian had won again. He had destroyed my food right before the Michelin judges could ever taste it. I looked at the broken pieces of my small stove. I had absolutely nothing left to cook with. The slum was quiet and dark. Julian was probably drinking expensive champagne in his clean, bright restaurant, waiting for his third star. He thought the ghost chef was finally dead. But as I sat crying on the dirty floor, I saw something strange shining near the broken door. It was a tiny, black plastic object. I slowly reached out and picked it up. My sad tears stopped instantly. A cold, sharp anger woke up in my soul. I held the tiny black object in my shaking hand. It was a micro camera. Julian's spies had secretly hidden it near my door to record my cooking methods. The health inspectors had accidentally knocked it onto the floor. I quickly plugged the broken camera into my old laptop. I bypassed the simple security code. I watched the hidden video files. I saw the health inspectors destroying my kitchen. I heard them talking on the phone with Julian, confirming the job was done. I had absolute proof of his terrible, illegal crime against me. But the camera also had an audio recording from Julian's own bright kitchen earlier that day. I listened closely to his arrogant voice. Julian was telling his staff about the special menu for the Michelin judges tonight. He was preparing the royal dish. The royal dish was the most difficult and complex recipe in my stolen notebook. My heart started beating very fast. I knew every single detail of that recipe. It required a very specific, rare wild mushroom. I listened as Julian proudly ordered his chefs to cook the mushrooms. Suddenly, a cold wave of pure terror hit me. In my private notebook, I had used a fast, personal abbreviation for the cooking process. Julian was reading my notes exactly, but he did not know the crucial secret behind the abbreviation. He was skipping the fermentation step completely. Those specific wild mushrooms contain a strong natural toxin. If they are not slowly fermented in salt for exactly 3 days, the poison remains active. Eating them causes extreme, deadly allergic shock. Julian did not know this because he was a thief, not the true creator. I looked at the clock on my wall. The Michelin judges were eating at his restaurant right now. Julian was going to serve the deadly mushrooms in exactly 1 hour. If the judges ate the royal dish, they would be poisoned on live national television. Julian was going to kill them. I did not care about my revenge anymore. I cared about the innocent people who were going to eat my recipe. I could not let my beautiful creation become a deadly weapon. I wiped the dirt from my face and grabbed my heavy winter coat. I ran out of the broken basement and into the cold night rain. I had to reach the famous Laura restaurant before the plates left the kitchen. I had to stop the arrogant thief from committing a terrible, accidental murder. The ultimate race against time had officially begun. I ran through the crowded, wet streets as fast as I could. My lungs burned, and my cheap shoes splashed in the dirty puddles. I finally reached the beautiful, glowing front doors of the famous Laura restaurant. Bright television cameras were filming outside for the Michelin Award broadcast. I tried to push past the red velvet ropes. Two massive security guards immediately blocked my path. They recognized me from the old Blacklist. "You are not allowed here, Clara," the tall guard said aggressively. "Get out before we call the police to arrest you. You have to let me inside." I screamed loudly, fighting against their strong arms. "Julian is going to poison the guests. The food is toxic." The guards laughed cruelly. They grabbed my arms, twisted them painfully behind my back, and threw me hard onto the wet, cold concrete. I scraped my knees badly on the street. The guards pulled out heavy metal handcuffs. They were going to lock me up in the dark alley. I cried in total despair. I was too late. The deadly food was probably leaving the kitchen right now. I had failed completely. Suddenly, a massive, shiny black limousine pulled up right next to the alley. The driver quickly opened the back door. An old man wearing a perfectly tailored, $1 million suit stepped out into the rain. He looked at me on the ground, and then he smiled a warm, familiar smile. I gasped in pure shock. It was the homeless man from the slum. The man who bought my $2 soup. He was clean and shaved now. "Let her go immediately," the old man commanded the guards. His voice held absolute, terrifying power. The guards froze in fear. The old man helped me stand up. "Who are you?" I whispered, totally confused. The man smiled gently. "My memory returned completely after eating your magical soup, Clara. I am the retired founder of Laura. And my son is the current global president of the Michelin Committee." The guards stepped back, completely terrified of the powerful man. He reached into his expensive jacket and pulled out a solid gold VIP card. He placed it firmly into my dirty hand. "Go inside, Chef Clara," he said proudly. "Go and defend your beautiful art." I held the golden card tightly. The heavy doors of the restaurant were no longer locked to me. I took a deep breath, ignored the pain in my bleeding knees, and walked straight past the shaking guards. I was ready to face the false king in his own castle. The grand dining room of Laura was filled with bright lights and elegant music. The television cameras were filming the most important table in the center of the room. Julian stood there proudly, wearing his bright white chef coat. He was holding a small silver pan of dark sauce. 3 serious Michelin judges sat at the table. In front of them were plates of my beautiful royal dish. Julian smiled perfectly for the live television cameras. "Please enjoy my ultimate masterpiece," he said smoothly. He began to pour the dark, deadly mushroom sauce over the meat. "Stop right there," I yelled at the top of my lungs. I burst through the heavy dining room doors. The elegant music stopped instantly. The wealthy guests gasped in shock. I walked straight toward the center table, wearing my dirty, wet clothes and bleeding from my knees. Julian's fake smile completely vanished. His face turned pale with angry panic. "Security! Get this crazy woman out of here," he shouted wildly. "She is the crazy cook from the Blacklist." But the judges raised their hands, intrigued by the sudden, extreme drama on live television. I did not waste time arguing. I walked directly to the judges' table. With one strong movement, I grabbed the expensive plates of the royal dish. I threw them aggressively onto the floor. The beautiful plates shattered into 100 pieces. The deadly food was destroyed. Julian screamed in pure, violent rage. "You ruined my Michelin star," he roared. I looked at him with cold, hard eyes. "I just saved you from a murder charge, Julian. You did not ferment the wild mushrooms. The sauce on those plates is a deadly, toxic poison." Julian laughed nervously for the cameras. "She is a liar. My food is absolutely perfect," he claimed loudly. I did not yell back. I opened my small, cheap plastic bag. I pulled out my old, portable gas stove and placed it right on the beautiful, white tablecloth. "If you are the true creator, Julian, prove it," I challenged him coldly. I pulled out raw ingredients from my bag. "I will cook the true royal dish right here in 10 minutes, using cheap tools. Let the judges see the chemical difference between a master and a dirty thief." The Michelin judges nodded in serious agreement. The television cameras zoomed in closely on my small stove. The entire world was watching live. The fake king was sweating nervously under the bright lights. The ultimate culinary battle had begun in the center of the dining room. The dining room was completely silent. I turned on my small gas stove. My hands moved with absolute perfect speed. I cooked the meat and prepared the sauce using my secret fermented paste. The beautiful, rich smell quickly filled the large, expensive room. It was true magic. In exactly 10 minutes, I placed my simple plate in front of the head judge. I pointed to the broken food on the floor. "Notice the color of his sauce," I said clearly. "It has a strange green shadow. That is the active, deadly mushroom toxin." The head judge put on his glasses and looked closely at the floor. He dipped a small testing paper into Julian's broken sauce. The paper instantly turned bright red. The judge gasped in pure horror. "She is completely right," he announced to the cameras. "This sauce is highly toxic." Julian began to sweat heavily. He stepped backward, shaking his head. "My sous chefs made a mistake," he lied desperately. "It is not my fault." The head judge ignored him. He took a silver spoon and tasted my simple, perfectly cooked dish. The other 2 judges tasted it as well. The head judge closed his eyes. A single tear rolled down his cheek. "This flavor is impossible," he whispered with deep emotion. "It is a true masterpiece of the human soul." He looked at me with absolute respect. "You are the true creator of this menu." Julian screamed in denial. He tried to run toward the kitchen door, but I pulled my phone from my pocket. I connected it to the restaurant's large television screen. I pressed the play button. The video from the hidden basement camera played loudly for the entire world to see. The video showed Julian's men destroying my basement. Then, the clear audio played Julian's arrogant voice, plotting to steal the recipe and bribe the inspectors. The undeniable proof echoed through the silent dining room. The fake star was completely exposed in front of millions of viewers. The global Michelin president stood up from the crowd. He looked at Julian with extreme disgust. "Julian," he said coldly, "the Michelin committee officially strips you of all your stars, forever. Your career is completely finished." 2 heavy police officers walked into the dining room. They grabbed Julian's arms and locked tight metal handcuffs on his wrists. The arrogant chef cried and begged as they dragged him out of his own beautiful restaurant on live television. The heavy guillotine of pride had finally fallen. Julian's fake empire collapsed overnight. The famous Laura restaurant closed its doors forever. Julian sat in a cold prison cell, facing serious charges for bribery and attempted poisoning. My name was completely cleared. The terrible blacklist was burned to ashes, and I was finally free. The next morning, my phone did not stop ringing. Famous billionaires and rich investors begged to meet me. They offered me blank checks and huge bags of money. They wanted to build giant, luxury restaurants with my name shining in bright gold letters. They promised endless wealth. I looked at the shiny offers on my table. I thought about the greedy, crazy world of high-class dining. I remembered how easily money and power had corrupted Julian's soul. I did not want to become a monster. I calmly tore the expensive contracts into tiny pieces. I left the bright city center and walked back to my poor, dark neighborhood. I used a small amount of my savings to fix my broken basement door and buy a new portable stove. I started cooking my cheap, beautiful food for the local workers again. Late one evening, a quiet black car parked in the dirty alley. 3 men wearing sharp, dark suits walked down the broken stairs to my basement. They were the top official judges of the Michelin committee. They did not come to eat. They came for a special ceremony. The head judge smiled warmly. He held a small, shiny metal plaque in his hands. "Chef Clara," he said respectfully, "we are breaking our 100-year-old rules tonight. A star belongs to the chef, not the expensive building." He walked over to my dirty, gray concrete wall. He proudly hammered the shiny Michelin star directly into the cracked wall of my basement. It was the first time in human history that a street kitchen with a portable stove had ever won the ultimate prize. I touched the beautiful star with tears in my eyes. The judges bowed deeply and walked away into the night. I tied my simple white apron around my waist. The line of hungry, poor workers was waiting outside my door in the cold. I smiled happily and turned on the small fire. I handed a hot, perfect bowl of soup to a tired factory worker for $2. I did not need a luxury kitchen or a famous television show. I had my magic, my honor, and my small basement. The true ghost chef was finally shining brightly in the dark.